Well, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll call this special meeting of the Commissioners Court to order here on the 17th day of November at 9 a.m. here at the courthouse. Everybody will rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just come to you thanking you, Lord, for all you do for us. Lord, I just ask you to be with us as we go into this meeting. Just give us the wisdom that we need to do what's best for Titus County. Lord, I just ask you just to be with those that have lost loved ones and those that are sick, and watch over and take care of them. Be with our servicemen and women, bring them home safely to us. Just ask you now just to go with us and forgive us where we fail. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, number one on the special meeting this morning is to canvass the votes of the November 4th, 2025 constitutional amendments with action to follow. And Miss Rainey, Miss Michelle is here. Morton? Michelle. Call you any different things? There's a microphone there.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Wharton. I'm the Titus County Election Administrator. I'm going to be canvassing the November 4th, 2025 constitutional amendments. There were 17. I'm going to read each amendment and what Titus County voted for and against for each one. Proposition 1. The constitutional amendment providing for the creation of the Permanent Technical Institution Infrastructure Fund and the available Workforce Education Fund to support the capital needs of education programs offered by the Texas State Technical College System. For was 1,243, against was 847. Proposition 2. The constitutional amendment prohibiting the imposition of a tax on the realized or unrealized capital gains of an individual, family, estate, or trust. For was 1,795, against was 299. Proposition 3. The constitutional amendment requiring the denial or bail under certain circumstances to persons accused of certain offenses punishable as a felony. For was 1,476, against was 604. Proposition 4, the constitutional amendment to dedicate a portion of the revenue derived from the state sales and use taxes of the Texas Water Fund and to provide for the allocation and use of that revenue. For was 899, against was 1,184. Proposition 5, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to exempt from ad valorem taxation tangible personal property consisting of animal feed held by the owner of the property for sale at retail. For was 1,679, against was 384. Proposition 6, the constitutional amendment prohibiting the legislature from enacting a law imposing an occupation tax on certain entities that enter into transactions conveying securities or imposing a tax on certain security transactions. For was 1,525, against was 514. Proposition 7, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to provide for an exemption from the ad valorem tax of all or part of the market value of the residence homestead of the surviving spouse of a veteran who died as a result or of a condition or disease that is presumed under federal law to have been service-connected. For was 1,897, against was 183. Proposition 8, the constitutional amendment to prohibit the legislature from imposing death taxes applicable to a decedent's property or the transfer of an estate, inheritance, legacy, succession, or gift. For was 1,897. Against was 195. Proposition 9. The constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to exempt from ad valorem tax a portion of the market value of tangible personal property a person owns that is held or used for the production or income. For was 1,695. Against was 392.
92 or 82?
382, I'm sorry. Okay. Proposition 10, the constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to provide for a temporary exemption from ad valorem taxation of the appraised value of an improvement to a residence homestead that is completely destroyed by fire. For was 1,944. Against is 140. Proposition 11, the constitutional amendment authorizing the legislature to increase the amount of exemption from ad valorem taxation by a school district of the market value of the residence homestead of a person who is elderly or disabled. For was 1,704. Against is 387. Proposition 12. The constitutional amendment regarding the membership of the State Commission of Judicial Conduct, the membership of the tribunal to review the Commission's recommendations, and the authority of the Commission, the tribunal, and the Texas Supreme Court to more effectively sanction judges and justices for judicial misconduct. For was 1,657. Against was 397.
Almost there.
Yeah. Proposition 13. The constitutional amendment to increase the amount of the exemption of the residence homesteads for ad valorem taxation by a a school district from $100,000 to $140,000. For was 1,868. Against was 222. Proposition 14. The constitutional amendment providing for the establishment of the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, establishing the Dementia Prevention and Research Fund to provide money for research on the prevention and treatment of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and related disorders in this state, and transferring to that fund $3 billion from the state general revenue. For was 1,180. Against was 895. Proposition 15. The constitutional amendment affirming that parents are the primary decision makers for their children. For was 1,830. Against was 244. Proposition 16. The constitutional amendment clarifying that the voter must be a United States citizen. For was 1,874. Against was 201. Proposition 17. The constitutional amendment to authorize the legislature to provide for an exemption from the ad valorem taxation of the amount of the market value of real property located in the county that borders the United Mexican States and arises from the installation or construction on the property of border security infrastructure and related improvements. For was 1,654. Against was 422. And those are the results of Titus County.
So Ms. Ward, all, excuse me, all but except for Proposition 4 passes in Titus County. Is that correct?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Didn't even look at it that way. Yes,
Okay.
that is true.
I I make a motion that we accept these to canvass the votes of the constitutional amendments on November the 4th, 2025. Ms. Wharton.
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Parker. All those in favor? Aye. Carries unanimously. So we'll canvass those votes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. With that being said, anybody got anything to say? Jeff, any comments? Jeff? Okay.
Thank you for what you're doing.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion made to adjourn by Commissioner Applewhite,
Second.
second by Commissioner Parker. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Carries unanimously. Seems like we got a few people here, so we can go ahead and get started because the workshop is to go right behind the canvassing of the votes. We've already said the prayer and the invocation, so number one on this agenda, which would be the special meeting of Commissioners Court to have a workshop to discuss the I-30 wait station / truck parking and related subjects possible with follow-on action. Is there anybody else that wants to speak on that subject? I've got a few forms here that people have already handed in. Nobody else? All right. We're going to keep this kind of an open forum workshop. If we have any questions, as long as we can question whoever we want to question in a nice and respectable way, then we can follow through with that. If not, then we need to move forward in a different direction. Then I'll say we'll have to stop it at that point. But we'll start with opening comments and anybody else that wants to speak. So first we've got Oscar Luna from 5805 North Lamar Boulevard in Austin, Texas, and I'm going to say he's with the DPS. Do you need to speak first, Daniel? I'm sorry.
I can go.
Okay, Daniel will go first.
I'm here just for support. Y'all want me to just speak?
No, you can, as long as you grab a microphone, wherever you want to go. You can be like a preacher and walk around if you like.
Okay. This thing work? So last time we were here, there were some questions brought up about, kind of what we had done and I guess for the fiscal year. And so I didn't have those numbers in front of me. It's kind of hard when numbers are presented in court, and I don't have the numbers to defend basically what I've done, to make sure they're 100% accurate. So I did some work, and I pulled numbers from, I have two different ones. I have numbers from September 1, which would be y'all's fiscal year, September 1 of 2024 to present. So out of that year, now this is inspections in Titus County that have been conducted. 7,343 inspections were conducted in Titus County.
How many did you say again?
7,343. That's just for the fiscal year. All right? Out of those vehicles, or those inspections that were conducted, we removed from the roadway 733 vehicles that were unsafe. We removed 144 drivers that were unsafe. Out of those inspections that were conducted, out of the 7,300 inspections, 315 tickets or citations were issued. 5,392 warnings for whichever violations, whether it be federal violations or state violations. Just a little more accurate information. Do y'all have anything else? I mean, I'm an open book. I'm happy to answer anything from anyone.
I actually have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Haynes, there's a microphone right here. You can keep your microphone so you can answer back and forth.
Okay, the first question I have for you, officer, is how many civilians are currently on your staff at the way station, and is there room for growth in your current budget?
Currently, we have 3 civilian inspectors. I have 2 FTEs, which 2 more civilian inspectors possible. Right now, we don't have the room for them because the scales were built in '94, and they've never been updated since. They're a little small for it. We can't put 5 civilians in how small they are, right? So right now, we got 3, and of course, when we have 3 out there, there's always a trooper out there with them. They have to work with them. It's mandated by our policy. So, did that answer your question?
Yes. So if this were to pass, then you would be able to employ more? You would be able to bring at least the 2 on that you have budgeted in your current budget?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. And can you tell us, in your inspection, sort of like how long the process is and what it involves? And what a new inspection, the new process?
So it varies. It depends, if we stop one, because obviously some of these trucks, they're doing what's right. So if they're doing what's right and we go through one, it takes probably about 30 to 40 minutes to do an inspection. Now, if we do one that's heavily involved, I mean, you're looking at possibly 2 hours or more. When you start working bridge law or other laws that may be applicable, it's going to take a lot more. You start having to measure axles. We start having to look at charts. We start having to go. It's just a lot more involved.
So under the new system, when they come into Titus County, when they get pulled off into the weigh station, you will already know that there's an issue with those trucks, or will it just be a random stop?
Well, we can still do both.
Okay.
But here's the deal. The technology that will be present out there, it will have license plate readers. In other words, it'll tell you if your registration is good or not.
Right.
That fast. It's there when the truck gets there. It'll tell you if the USDOT numbers have been revoked, if they're a good operating company. There's over height readers, over weight readers. I mean, in other words, as they're rolling, we have the big technology that'll tell you if they're overweight.
Right.
Flat tire readers. I mean, there's just an immense amount of stuff that technology has right now that.
And those are things that only motor vehicle inspection enforcers can do, correct? Like a regular, but an officer that pulls over a truck in, say, Greenville for speeding doesn't have the capability of making those, of stopping those dangerous trucks.
That is accurate.
Okay, so y'all will be the only, y'all are our only source.
They can't perform a federal inspection.
Okay.
They can't inspect the truck like we can. That's
Okay.
correct. We've been through
Okay.
a multitude of schools to do that.
Okay. And I know that you said that you've taken drivers out of service out there, so arrest, what type of arrests have you made, like drugs, illegals? I mean, what?
Well, yeah, there's going to be some drug arrests, but for the most part, generally, I think it's more of like warrants and stuff
okay.
like that.
Okay.
Because in general, we're dealing with people at work.
Okay.
They're not really, I mean, don't get me wrong, well, there's plenty of them out there that are moving and doing other things, but
Right.
for the most
sure.
part, that's it.
Okay. And what, I sort of asked this a while ago, but what, the citations that you issue, they can't do, like the tire checks and things, they can't do those either, correct? Like if the
Technically,
BPS pulls over an 18-wheeler just because he's speeding.
right, no, that's correct.
Okay, okay. And then we were talking about wrecks. So, and we've actually FOIA'd that information, but if there's an accident on I-30.
Ms. Haynes, you don't have to hold it up.
If there's
Nobody can hear you in
I'm
here,
usually
but-
pretty loud.
Yeah, but when they start calling on the deal, say, we can't hear. So-
Okay, I'm sorry. So, if there's an accident, say, in another county that involves an 18-wheeler, y'all are, if there's or even in Titus County, are y'all involved in the inspection at all
Absolutely.
of a vehicle?
Depending on the severity of it, whether it might be a fatality involved
Right.
or something that makes, we'll say like a large hazmat spill, something of the
Right.
such, we're going to go out there and do a post-crash investigation. That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, and we FOIA'd that information, didn't we? Okay. So, there's a difference then in the officers who are certified or trained to do these as opposed to an officer that just does traffic stops on?
That is
Okay,
accurate.
I want to make sure that
Yes,
that we
yes,
have that.
ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
basically explain to us the magnitude? This thing is like nothing like what we currently have, and I'm not sure.
As far as I
people really
know,
understand
I don't
this,
think
how
people
much
really
bigger
understand what this brings. I mean, it is a monster. So this, I think there's only 3 currently in the state of Texas, if I'm not mistaken. So, how would I put that into words? You know, how large this is. I mean, it's going to be a large-scale event. It's going to be large enough that we can pull 18-wheelers off the road, and the ones that are good, in other words, the ones that we don't want to look at, the ones that are doing things right, it can pull them and just send them. It'll have a bypass lane. Like they can just keep traveling, you know, basically what it does is it doesn't hinder commerce. So commerce is still rolling. And furthermore, it'll take some of the bad trucks and it'll just instantly shoot them over to us.
So, order of magnitude bigger operation.
Significantly larger.
Okay. And then it's going to be on the west side of the interstate
That's
going to
correct.
Dallas.
Yes,
Does
sir.
the state have any possibility down, maybe many years down the road, but at some point maybe putting it on both sides of the interstate? Because I think that's
Well,
might be something.
there's been talk of it, but, you know, obviously this is a large plan, and obviously it's one step at a time. So, you know, if that was a possibility, you know, in Seguin, I want to say there's talk of them conducting another spot on the other side. I don't know that. I do know that they were talking also about putting a complete another sergeant area just to be there to work the one that's present. So you're talking about doubling the workforce out there as well. You know, our traffic on I-30, our truck traffic, is quite a bit larger than Seguin's traffic. It's larger than I-20. You know, we're running more trucks on I-30 than we are in any of these other interstates. So
That's one of the things that I was going to ask Holly to help me out on that. Let's just try to get some traffic ideas of the different sizes. But you can already, it sounds like you've already looked into that to a degree. It's a lot more traffic.
it's dramatic. It's just a large amount.
The traffic on I-30 in 2024, and this is from TxDOT's numbers, not our numbers. From I-30 in 2024, the average daily traffic count was 29,465, with 49.3% of those being trucks on our I-30. The I-10, which is where Seguin's facility is, does have a larger amount of traffic. They've got a traffic count of 37,934 trucks, but their truck traffic count is 32%. So with that being said, our truck traffic count on I-30 is 14,526 trucks a day versus Seguin's, which is 12,214 trucks a day. So we're gaining 2,300 trucks a day down this than they do down there. Daniel, if you don't mind, would you explain, I know you talked to me and Jody, and they showed us when we were down in Seguin watching that. This will go several miles back down the interstate with the readers and things of that nature. Instead of just flipping on the switch and moving the 10 truck, you're not more knowledgeable about that. Instead of us finding needles in haystacks, the percentage goes from maybe 1 out of 20 that we catch to 90% of them being, if you mind talking
Absolutely,
about that.
that's absolutely correct. So as of right now, the process is, if we get ready to inspect a truck, we walk over and we hit a light switch. And I mean, it's just like you turn the lights on in your kitchen, right? So we flip the light on, and what it does, about a mile or so down the road, we have flashing lights. And what that does is signal the 18-wheelers or commercial motor vehicles that are regulated to come into our scales. So, you know, sometimes if we see one come in that is super clean or whatever the case may be, we probably don't look at that one as much, you know, and it kind of goes by. If we see one that's kind of rolling in, it's got mismatched fenders and stuff hanging off the side of it, or tires flopping, you know, as they're coming in the scales, obviously that's what we're going to look at. That's the ones we want to look at and get off the road. Now, there are some things that could be possible with the clean red truck that we don't see. In other words, the registration could be out on it. The The DOT numbers could be invalid. I mean, there could be a number of things, the driver himself, could have issues, with, he could be sick, if they're sick or fatigued, that they could be out of service at that point. There's just an immense amount of information that could be missed. So, and just the computer will run everything, and we'll have that knowledge in front of us at a snap of a finger. Does that kind of answer?
So they're scanning back down the road as far as the traffic goes?
Yeah, it'll have the information for us before it gets to it. If there's something wrong with that truck in particular, it will send it to us. And we can...
Me and Jody have been down there, there's a big computer screen or whatever, and they're reading that as they're coming along to know whether they're coming in for service or for inspection or whatever. When you talk about taking drivers off the road, what would be just out of time or exactly?
Well, there's a number of things for that. It could be, if they had any alcohol on their breath. I mean, that's the instant out of service. It could be any type of drug as a driver out of service. It could be over their hours. It could be if they don't have the medical card. There could be a false log. I mean, there's a number of violations that come along with that as well.
And when you take a vehicle out of service, would you explain what that does?
Absolutely. So, bad tires, bad brakes, load securement, everything to pintle hooks or pintle hitches not being worn too much. But when we do that, when we remove one and we park one, what they have to do is they have to, not a may or a might, they have to fix the out-of-service problem before they're allowed to get back on the highway. It will stay there from now on, or we'll just have it towed until somebody can fix it. So, and we've had to do that at times where we've had to have them towed because it can't get them fixed. They're just in that bad a shape.
I have another question too. So talking to people about this way station, a lot of people are under the impression that trucks will just pull off the highway and take 67 or 271. So what prevents these trucks from tearing up our back roads and forcing them through the way station?
So 67 is a load zone road. It's a regulated road as well. So if they was to do that, it would it would be a larger fine for them to go around probably than to just go about it the way they are. Now, the easy way to go about this is that we put a trooper on that road.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's pretty simple. Really. So.
And then you'll be able to see because of their logbooks that they're obviously avoiding the way station.
Well, the other side of it is if they're doing that on intent, there's no reason for them to be on 67. They're intentionally running the scale house. They're intentionally going around it. Yes, ma'am.
How far down the road, you said that they scan it before you got to the station. How far down the road, what kind of apparatus is going to scan it? Is something special on the truck or what?
Yes, well, actually, yes. So you may not know it, but there's already license plate readers on interstate. Every time you go to Dallas or wherever, your car's been scanned. It has been. And what that does, it goes along with, was it Epic? I want to say it's Epic, that basically they keep track of cars that have went across the border. Does that make sense? So if they come up this way and then they'll have, it'll ping and they'll know that car has been there. Like if it crossed the border yesterday at 2 o'clock and it comes back a day and a half later going back west, well, that's kind of strange, right? I mean, in our world, that's very strange. In law enforcement, that it kind of throws red flags up a little bit. So, anyway, yes, there will be technology down there that basically it'll read your license plates. It'll be able to see your DOT numbers that are issued on the side of the truck, and it'll be able to run all that there. I mean, it'll be sending it to us, and if it's a flag, right, it'll send it to us. It may be good. It may just keep you right down the road. And a lot of them are. But Does that answer pretty much? Yes, ma'am.
On your inspections on 7,000.
Hold on. Get the microphone.
That's a bunch of inspections. Is that, were those all done at the weigh station?
No, it's Titus County. That's all Titus County. I did not pull it, how many were done at the scales. I didn't pull that.
Oh, I thought you said you couldn't do, I didn't think you could do inspections unless you were at the station. So I guess I got confused.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no,
ma'am.
we don't, so in commercial motor vehicles enforcement, we don't need a reason to stop 18-wheelers. Like, once we get certified by the feds, if we see a truck on a public highway, we pull up and hit our lights to do a safety inspection. That's how easy it works. I
Okay,
mean,
so
it's-
you can do a safety inspection anyway?
We do not need probable cause to stop a vehicle, an 18-wheeler, or a commercial motor vehicle. How's
Okay,
that?
okay, that makes sense. I just didn't understand when you were saying inspections going, so you'd, okay, and these 315 tickets, that's a lot better than last go-around.
Isn't it? It's about 303 more than what was presented.
Do you know how many of those were done at the weigh station?
So I do have some numbers. Now, on that, the first numbers I pulled, because I was being I wanted to be a little bit more reserved. I wanted to make sure I was, from January 1 to present, at the scale house itself, there were 174 citations issued. And I can go over I got all the printout of that too, if y'all want the violations on them.
Do you have like an average amount of ticket money for revenue? Like an
Well, so
average?
once we write tickets, it's out of our hands. We're done. So if it goes to the JP's office or they get appealed to the county attorney's office, we don't know. We don't know where they go from there. That's going to be on the powers that be.
How many did you say you wrote last year? I mean, this year or last
The
year?
fiscal year, or
Last year.
from September 1 of 2024 to present was 315.
350.
No, ma'am, no, sir, 315, 315.
We wrote 315 tickets, and you brought us to court the other day 12 tickets. The revenue was just 12 tickets is all it showed.
The 12 entries were the revenue brought in, not the number of tickets.
Okay. And it just brought 12,000 in. And for 315 tickets, are we processing them right? Yeah, I mean, are they all getting processed?
Processing, we received a monthly report from the departments, and we received them in based on the category that the ticket is entered into the report as. So I was asked to pull revenue for overweight tickets.
Overweight,
And
okay.
I pulled the revenue. When we went into the individual tickets for that one code, there were 63 written for just that one code over the period of time. Now, that may not correlate with those tickets, because it could be fines and fees. There were several tickets for fines and fees. So you're talking about money receipted in, not tickets that were written.
Well, what's the minimum ticket usually run?
Well, I got a printout from Miss Applewhite, and I don't know, I can just kind of go over this one 34,000-pound tandem axle ticket, and that's, I would say for a weight violation, that's pretty accurate. I mean, that's fairly normal as far weight violations go. On the fine itself, the fine was $100. That's what I'm looking at here. That's a state statute. That's what's set, I think, right by the state. And then I guess the county fine in total would be like all the processing fees and so on and so forth. That was $517. And of course, there's three more. I don't know what these are or what they're even called. SCCC and LCCC, local, and then there's a state fine and something else. But so it looks like to me, out of the $700 fine, 617 of it stayed at the county level. and $83 of it went to the state.
Okay.
And when I say the state, please understand, it's, we don't get it. It's the comptroller, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's for an overweight?
Yes, sir. That was for over 34,000 tandem.
Why so many warnings and so few violent citations?
Well, in a nutshell, because there's certain things that fit into the criteria. And for instance, a turn signal on the rear of a unit. That, if we stop that, and so that's an out-of-service violation. It's a turn signal. So would you like to be issued a ticket for a turn signal? I mean, I'm just being honest about it, no. So that's something we write warnings for.
More serious violations, like the weight,
Absolutely.
the brakes, things like that.
Yeah.
You are,
Stuff that's going to hurt somebody. That's what
right,
we...
okay.
So, yeah, it could be the cab marker lights.
So
It could be side marker lights. I mean, there's a lot of minor violations that could...
Okay. So on that, we're writing these tickets for these safety violations that are dangerous tickets. So are we prosecuting those in the county with the JP and the county attorney's office so that we're making a statement, or are we just, they're getting a citation for safety and then we're not doing anything at the county level to follow through on that?
Ma'am, again, that's not my lane.
Who can answer
That's
that?
not something I speak on.
Where's the chick?
Just went out regarding the tickets. There were about 80 of them that was appealed to county court. And those, we handle those through pre-trial. Now, as far as the capacity at the judge's level, she sets court, we have court periodically regarding anyone who wants a trial. And those cases are tried in the form of a big trial for the judge. And we try those cases. As far as I would assume all the others are just like most people who get a speeding ticket.
Okay.
They don't want to try.
So then we
John?
can see the numbers on that.
My department, from him going through and they actually have to pay something, then the fees are dispersed into different categories. It doesn't all go to us.
Okay. So it is kind of hard to track where the money is going because it's being so we need to figure out, obviously we need to know where the money is being dispersed to.
John? Whoa.
Yeah,
Just one at a time. We're going to have to pass the microphone around because everybody be calling me. John Mark, on pre-trials, that money, how is that money, where does that money go and how do we track that money?
All right, first off, let me say something to clarify. I had 80 pre-trials regarding these tickets. Those are not all coming from the scale house, just to be clear. Just like Daniel was saying, 315 tickets Titus County wide. So there was 80 cases, and that could include a farmer, a local farmer who has a CDL license. And so what we've done for years is if you have a CDL license and you're willing to pay $500, you would pay the $500 pretrial fee, and that money stays 100% in Titus County in my office, which goes towards paying paying my budget. Is how we've been doing it.
But it all stays in your budget.
That's the way the law. Yes. We could. Since those are not probation cases, we can't let probation have any of it. But yeah, it stays in the county attorney's office. When you see those numbers, when y'all see the pretrial, there's two pretrial funds. One of them is for CDLs and one of them is for just other offenses. But we keep them in two. We have done Nanette had us, or maybe Barbara did this because it's been going on many years, but they actually broke it up into two different categories. So that's nice. So if anybody, like Holly was asking me she's going to want to, I'm going to let her look at some of that stuff and get a better idea. And so it is broken out, thank goodness. It's not in one category. So we can kind of see these are CDL appeals.
I think where we're missing a lot of this, Daniel, and I don't know how to quite explain it to them without actually seeing the process down there. I know we only had 300 tickets, but with the technology and all the thermals that'll read the brakes and all of those kind of different things, this is two different ball games. That if this if this plan comes in, the 315 tickets is, I'm going to say there's no way that.
It's a night and day different operation from what we're doing, and obviously, we're not sitting around.
Not doing a job.
Right.
I don't want y'all to ever think that we're saying that you're not doing your job, because there are tickets there, but these will not just be there. And as in Seguin, we're talking to their JP&O down there, it's between $1 million and $1.2 million, $1 million and $1.2 million a year that they're drawing in from that. Have built a new center down there, and they are talking about going across the street and building another superstation just like they got on the other side of the interstate. So
Yes, sir. But again, I do want to stress this part, just from my point, is we will always be about safety. We are always about safety. So whatever the byproduct of doing our job is, I guess, a byproduct.
I think it's very important to point out, just like in California, where they take some of these drivers off that don't even have a license, can't read the signs, killing people and things. Safety y'all's job is Texas Department of Safety. It's not the Texas Department of Revenue. The part that I like about this is that's the icing on the cake, that it does help us pay for a big expenditure, a $9 million expenditure. But we spent about $3 million out on the Chapel Hill Road, took eminent domain for safety, which I'm all about safety. And I had a wreck on that road myself going to college. That's been a long time ago. Anyway, it has helped the traffic out there. The loop has pushed more people out there, and I wish that everyone could go down and see the station and then have the knowledge that you're trying to explain to them. Any other questions for Daniel?
Daniel, before you go.
Yes, sir.
These sensors that are going to be placed down the road, will these trucks coming through know that those sensors are there, or will they?
Well, it wouldn't take long for them to find out, yes, sir. I mean,
I know that, but
not to be sound like a, but yes, sir. Eventually, absolutely, they would. And we've got trucks, and you're always going to have somebody that are trying to get around, right? They're trying to do the right thing. So you'll have people that may want to go down 67, like we talked about. And the simple fix of that is just put a trooper out there, because you'll know that more than likely that truck probably doesn't belong there.
Then they bring them to you at the station?
Even better.
Any more questions for Trooper Crooks? Thank you so much for your information.
Thank you, Daniel.
And your service. Mr. O'Connor, you got something?
I really wanted to just get my name out there so I could talk if I needed to. I didn't know we were going to do that. I'll ask questions as time permits.
Okay, you're welcome to.
I have a couple of questions for you, Judge.
Go.
If you guys decide to go through with this project, who will be in charge of the construction? Like, will we have to handle that locally? Or will TxDOT handle it? Who will be in charge of making sure that's done? Because obviously, if a project that size would take a lot of time from our local
From the auditors and all.
officials.
And I'm glad you asked that. And TxDOT was going to be here today, and they called, and they've got some type of special regional meeting here to speak on that. Everybody was saying, well, we'd have to have another purchasing agent. No, this will all be handled through the state of Texas. They will do all of the construction, they'll do all the bidding, they'll do all the letting, and then they'll do all the inspection before they turn that over. The truck parking itself will still be owned by the state and the federal government. That will not be our responsibility in any way. If something happens on it, concrete breaks or something of that nature, that falls back to them. That has nothing to do with us. All we would be responsible for would be the weigh station itself. And once, if we did go to that process, and if it makes sense to us, once we get numbers and things, if we do go to that, then that would all be handled to the state. They'd tell us what date we have to turn the check over to them from the bank if we do get a loan, and then they would do all that process for us, and we would not, our hands would be wiped of that.
And then on the other side of that, we would have to probably have more help in the JP's office as well as the county attorney's office to handle the citations, because assuming that they will increase
Very much a possibility.
substantially.
And that would be something down the road that we would have to look at.
Okay.
They're in Seguin. They've got a separate JP's office over there. It's got a courtroom in it. If anybody gets a chance to go down there, the troopers will help you get in down there so that they can show you around. Go by the JP's office down there. They've got a nice setup down there. They've got leather chairs. They've got jury pools. They've got it all, and they handle all those tickets. Matter of fact, there at that JP's office, they have a couple of spots that you can pull your truck in, come in, pay your ticket, and you're right back out on the road and get it taken care of quickly.
Holly and I are planning on going to Austin, to Seguin in December to
If
tour
there's
that
any
facility
way
and
that I
speak
can
with them.
help y'all with names of the JPs down there, numbers, Trooper Crooks will surely set you up there. To see the process, it's just so much different than what we have here today.
Correct.
To walk down the pits, they let us walk down the pits where they pull the trucks over, and so that some of the troopers don't. One of them's here today. He still wants to get on a board and scoot up underneath it. He still likes it, but it makes it a lot easier, and depending on how tall they are and things of that nature. But it's an amazing thing to see. Like I said, safety is the number one reason that we need to do this, but the icing on the cake is if it can pay for itself. Look where we are. Once we do get that paid for, then that's money that comes back into the county, and as Trooper Luna was talking about, that's money that has to be spent on your roads and things for safety and stuff of that nature, as far as road materials and things of that nature.
Correct.
And ma'am, Judge Cooper.
Give to a microphone.
Judge Cooper mentioned Sabine. I called down to the other one in Guadalupe County. It's the same thing. They have a separate JP. They got a courtroom there. They have a full-time prosecutor, because it's just a lot of tickets. And so that's pretty much the way it goes. One of the questions we have is, we may have to have the legislature set up a new JP. Judge and I were talking about that, and we'd have to have that. Would that have to be coordinated? But this project could take a while to get built, and we have another legislative session in between that time. But I think that's kind of one of the things we were thinking about.
Well, kind of speaking on that, if you guys did decide to go ahead with the application process.
Hold on. You got to have that microphone.
They cannot hear you on the tape.
On the
tape. Okay.
When people try to watch this, they cannot hear the
Okay,
people speaking.
sorry.
You put it right up on your mouth.
So if you guys decide to continue with this project, the funding of it, I know it's a 2-year construction project, or approximately 2-year construction project. So with the funds, if you did that, do we know if the funds would be, would they be, the contract, would it be the loan start on the date of the contract, or would it start on the completion of the project? Would we have that 2 years, or how long would we have to start paying that loan back?
That is something that would be worked out in the application of the loan.
In the application of it, okay.
And like I said, there's no fees for the application, but
Right.
that would be things that we would work with SIB or whichever bank that we did
Okay.
decide to go with.
And would it be a lump sum? Do we know? Would we be a lump sum payment for it, or would it be paid out in increments as it's
My understanding is it
progresses?
would be, once it's all leaded and TxDOT is pushing dirt, then that you start then. So
Okay.
that's my understanding of it.
Okay.
Like I said, I wish TxDOT would have been able to be here today to explain some of that.
Okay.
Hey, Judge, could you comment on, one of the things you were telling me about is the how you borrow the money and how we're borrowing it not from a local bank, so the interest rates are going to be lower, you were telling me?
Well, and like I said, that's the application with the SIB bank that we did talk about, trying to get with the State Infrastructure Bank. They do this, they do it on loans, very low cost on that. The last ones that they let was around 3.4, somewhere in that nature, and they think that the rates have even gone down some more. I did speak with local banks as well to see their interest on it. They looked at the numbers. They don't have a problem with it, but then on the other side of that, They're not an infrastructure bank. There'd be closing fees, there'd be things of that nature. So on $9 million, you're looking at almost close to another $1 million in closing fees and things of that nature. With the SIB loan, it would be a guaranteed amount. If you can set it up for 10 years, you can set it up for 20 years, and whatever you do on that, it is set and it does not change. If you want to pay that off in a less timely manner than that, there's no penalties for that as either to go with that. Like I said, with speaking with the banks here, they said there's some other things that come into effect with the SIB. It goes on your indigents around the county and your level of pay on that, so that would even drop our interest rate a little lower through the state SIB bank.
When the application process, or in the application process with SIB, does that interest rate lock in for however long the process takes, or is it just like a local bank, 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, 60 days?
No, sir. Once you're locked in with SIB, like I said, that's state money. Once they set it aside, it's guaranteed, and whenever the project lets, then they go with that, and you're locked into that price. And that's the beauty of it. Instead of guessing on what that interest rate would be, you know exactly what your numbers would be. And the reason that we brought this up so early on this, everybody said, well, it takes about 2 to 4 months for the SIB to get all the information that they'd have to get from our auditor and from our treasurers. I don't know what all information that they would need. It takes them about 2 to 4 months to do that. And then once they get that information, it's another 1 to 2 months before they would process that to say, this is what your amount would be. And then it's you're not obligated to that loan even at that point. If you want the loan, then you sign up for it. If you don't, it's nothing.
We're sort of jumping the gun in the process here because the discussion part should really happen after the application of the loan so that we have the numbers, correct?
You can't say what the numbers are until you get the numbers.
Right. Well, it's hard to present to the public if we don't have the numbers. Holly, this is Holly Parker, if y'all don't know. I'd like to encourage y'all to listen to what she has to say today. She was asked to look at the project by John Mark Coburn and Miss Applewhite. They obviously respect her and value her opinions. And let's not forget about what she did with the fire department. She did a lot of work on the fire department agreement for
100%.
For the county,
Absolutely.
a lot.
Yes.
So, and she also holds a master's degree from George Mason University in Public Policy, specializing in terrorism, transnational crime, and corruption. She's sincere and she's honest, and she knows exactly, she's very good at research and figuring out what, a good path on this. So I highly encourage y'all to listen to what she has to say. Anyway, she has done some research and work, and I would like for her to go into what we have sent, the FOIAs that we have sent out this week to TxDOT, DPS, and other places to get more data for you guys.
Before you do speak, Holly, I'd like to give her a little shout out on her spade and neutering program that she's got. She's raised a lot of money. We've gotten a lot of dogs and cats taken care of spade and neutered wise, and so that doesn't go unnoticed as well. We appreciate that work.
Well, thank you. We welcome your money, so donate today. Yeah, thank you. We've actually spayed and neutered. Now we're more than 75 animals since we started doing it in June, and we have 3 lined up this week. So, yeah.
Thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. No, it's our pleasure. Kim and I do it, and we love our community very much. So, any way we can help. So, yes, I got a call from John Mark. John Mark and I are friends. I'm going to say it publicly, so now he can't run away from me. So he asked if I could look at some stuff. So I met with Dana, our county treasurer, and I listened to some questions, right, presented with some paperwork, and looking really at, like, some of it came from Ms. Dunn's office, our JP, on the payouts, right? And so there was, like, legitimate concern. I saw that, and I was like, whoa, that's not a lot of money, right? And it seemed like based on the deposits, you're like, the question was, is there enforcement going on, right? Is this a viable financial investment. So as we were talking more, I was like, okay, she kept saying IRMA. I was like, what is this acronym? I need to know what office, and she's like, oh no, that's JP. So I was like, okay, I need to talk to Ms. Dunn, right? I need to talk to John Mark, because John Mark's name came up. So we had a conversation. I walked away with understanding what some concerns might be. So then I went to go see Judge Cooper, who wasn't there, so I spoke to Monica, because I was like, okay, I want to understand where you guys are coming from in this conversation. So had a 2-hour conversation there. Officer Crook's name kept coming up. I was like, I need to talk to Officer Crooks. So I had 2 different conversations with Officer Crooks. I talked to him for a total of 2 hours. I did call Ms. Dunn's office on Friday. I was supposed to meet with her, but she wasn't available. I left a message. So just so you know, these are kind of the conversations I'm having so far. So what I walked away with after talking to everybody is there's a disconnect between the offices and what is going on in the county, in my opinion, because everything is so bifurcated. Everyone knows what their department is doing. So even like when you're saying, oh, these fines, these are only the overweight fines, right? And then I find out, oh, well, the fines coming up from the weigh station, JP Dunn oversees those, but anything else, they go to JP, is it Brown, right? Or whatever the other JP's off, Hagen, right? And so they don't see in the systems what each person is doing. Okay, once it goes to the JP's, once it leaves the hands of Officer Crook's people, then it goes to the JP's office. Well, once it goes to John Mark's office, right, no one knows what funds are being taken out, right, the threshold. So this is a cluster of garbage. Okay, so after talking with, I gathered all the information that was given to the county commissioners. I said, I want to know everything that they were given so I can see what they had beforehand, okay? Just so you know, I'm going to do records requests for Ms. Dunn. And so what they're going to be is how many tickets were turned into her office, because she gets a physical copy of that ticket. I want to understand the process, so I'm going to go through 3 years of her budget, right? That's what I'm going to be asking for. And saying, I want to understand, to have a conversation with her too, to understand how much of her time is spent over this weigh station. How many cases does she oversee, right? And dealing with this process. Can her office handle a temporary increase in case we need to move forward with creating another JP's office? Which is why, by the way, I told Kim, I was like, I want to go and talk to the JP's office down in Seguin. And she said, let's go. Because I want to talk to the people who run it to see what has been the increase in traffic, right, to the officers. Year over year, what's the percentage of increase? That's why we have a records request out at TxDOT saying, okay, 2 years prior budget, what was your budget like? What was your traffic like? What were your fines, your inspections, all of that, compared to the 4 years that this program has been operating? I want to see a year-to-year increase in budget and growth of the program to see if it's viable. So that is going to be my conversation with Ms. Dunn, and I'm filing that records request today. I had the conversation with John Mark. He and I talked for about 3 hours in total. So I had a conversation with him saying, John Mark, what is your process for these appeals? How many have you gotten for weigh stations? Because I'm really only concerned about weigh stations here, right, for this program. Now, I understand they have the appeals outside when you have these enforcement officers operating, but right now I'm like, I want to focus on the weigh station to see what the process is, because usually they're probably going to be having larger fines at the weigh stations. So I said, I want 3 years of that data. I talked to him, I was like, what is your threshold for the appeal process, right? And so I don't know if he wants to explain it. He's more than happy. I'm more than happy to explain our conversation. But I have a greater understanding of the appeal process. Anything that comes in under $500, he's like, we kind of welcome the appeal, so to speak, because if it's a $200 ticket and they're willing to pay $500, so they're not getting, so to speak, a dock on their license, which is very important, the point system. Right, so he said, we process that. I said, I understand that completely, it makes sense to me. But what about over that? What is the threshold? Do you have, is it a monetary value? Is there a certain number of infractions where you say, these are too serious violations, I'm not letting you go through that appeal process? I don't know yet, right? So I'm going to look at that information to be able to get back to you
When you check with them down there in Seguin, not to interrupt you, but before I forget,
Yeah.
because I know you got things to say, if you can get the process that they had before they got the super weigh station
Yeah.
and see what the tickets were there, and I think
Yeah.
that's what you said, but I just
Yeah.
want to make sure
We-
beforehand, because it's hard to compare apples to apples. This weigh
No.
station is
We're-
not going
we're-
to be what that weigh station down there is.
Yes, that's why we did 2 years prior to it, and then it's either 3 or 4 years it's been in operation. So that way you can see basic commonality towards the end of the prior system compared to today, and to see if you're seeing an exponential growth, if you're seeing dips or whatever it might be patterns.
If not.
You might be able to see certain years where people are trying to evade, right? Or maybe there's months where you're like, well, dang it, I don't want this ticket, so evade, and so
Right.
this is why the data is so important to have. Okay, so I'm going to get that from John Mark this week. He has a trial, so I understand, but he said hopefully by Friday. So I'll have all that information for you guys. But so remember, in this process, so you have money going to John Mark's office, you have money that is waste, that's showing waste station only, and so that's in one JP's office. You have another JP office overseeing it. The question I had then too is, okay, well, when it comes to the county, in that example of a ticket, where does it go, right? What office does it go to? If it's processed, where does it go if it's not John Mark's office? I couldn't tell you right now. I couldn't, and I'm not being mean. I'm saying I need to talk to the auditor to seeing, okay, where's this disbursement of funds, treasurer, what, like I want to see all of this information so I can understand who's getting all of these funds, because right now I don't know. Maybe treasurer.
The JP office, the money that they collect that goes into their funds, it generates their office, plus it goes back, it goes back into the county. That's our money that we use to run the county. So whatever she's brought in, if this waste station, we still have to bring in that amount just to be where we are, so to cover where we are right now. You see, in her funds, in her fees, correct, Nanette? Every department's money that we collect, then it goes back into the general fund. That's then is, when it's budgeted, then it's budgeted out again for everybody else. Now,
I can show you. Yeah. Every month they pull a report. We have a report that's generated by all the departments of all the fines and fees. They have a bank account in which they receipt those in on a monthly basis, and that bank account clears out at the end of every month and rolls to the treasurer. All of that money is dispersed to the treasurer, and it's put in various accounts based on the criteria that is set by the fee code. That's why when they asked me for a fee code revenue, I gave them, it's one number a month. It's not how many tickets are written, it's a total number. There's also a fines. And when he was saying LCCC and SCCC, those are specific fines and fees that are directed to the departments that they receive on those. Then at the end of the month, that report comes to us, and then we receipt them into our general ledger based on where they are. And if they're state fees and it's not any of the money that the county keeps, it goes into a fund we set up called State Fees, Fund 41, and we pay those quarterly to the state. It's very transparent and it's very easy. I can show you at any time, not a problem.
Yeah, so I guess, and this is the problem too that you're seeing, right, is, and maybe it's, obviously you're going to be the expert I need to talk to on this, right? So it's transparent for you, but for these, in general, like when I looked at that information of just overweight fines, it was like 13,000. Okay, that's not the whole picture, right, at the end of the day. So what is the whole picture between all these different departments on what this is bringing in per year? That is the question. So that's why I'm looking at, we went to Seguin and was like, I want an example. I want 2 years of your budget prior to this program, just like I want 3 years of your budget once this program started. Okay. There's just so many questions I've had in this process. I want you to also know that I'm asking about, because there's difference between federal statutes and local statutes, right? And so federal statutes that are enforcing, the state gets 50% of that fine, right, of the maximum fine that they've enforced. But that maximum fine might not be the entire, let's say it's a seatbelt ticket. Okay, the maximum fee would be $100. So they're not getting half of the entire fee because the locality exponentially increases the fine. Let's say it's $500 for a seatbelt ticket. What we're giving to the state is 50% of that maximum fine that they've set at the federal statute, which is $100. So they're getting 50, and the localities and everything else is getting the rest, right? So I'm going to the weigh station, we've asked records requests for how many federal statutes are we enforcing versus local statutes, and what are the breakdowns for the maximum fines, so I can understand what exactly is going to the state and what exactly is being kept here, okay? I'm asking about I was talking to Officer Crooks, because I was giving the example of Cass County. Anyone driven through Cass County lately? Logging County? Yeah, lots of damage from the semis to the roads. I was campaign manager for somebody out there. I drove out there in my Jeep. I was terrified. So I said, do we have any data on if you're thinking forward on what this system would do, right? If you're looking at traffic safety, the money it's saving, what does damage of overweight trucks do to the roads, right? Because if you're having this program where people are coming into Texas, and we're saying, what are the possible damages we're saving other counties from incurring, right? Yes, including our own. So I have a records request out on what are the costs of overweight trucks and such on rural roads. Because I want to see how much do we spend across Texas to fix issues like this.
Judge Ransom can get you a lot of those answers on those logging trucks over in Cass County. Travis Ransom.
Yeah, and I know him. So, but I want to see if they have any information there too, right? So again, I have a records request out for how many arrests we've performed at the weigh station. I have a records request out because there was information that I got that. Now, Officer Crook said he wasn't sure on this, so that's why I'm doing a records request, but I was told that by someone else that per inspection, that they were under the impression that the TPS got money per inspection they performed. So as I asked him, I asked him no. And so...
Yeah, we have the guy.
Okay.
The guy. That's why he's here. Hold on, Ms. Lennon. There's two microphones. If you drive all the way from Austin, you definitely got to have a microphone.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So the notion that DPS gets money for inspections, that's a fallacy. The legislators provide us funding through every biennium and then it provides funding for our division, who then provides some funding for the Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Service. In addition, we apply for a Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program grant through the FMCSA that provides us funding to conduct inspections, provide equipment for our troopers, provide IT replacement for the intelligent transportation systems, the stuff of the screening tools and such. But we don't get, there's no such thing as getting an X amount of money per inspection. That is a fallacy. We just get funding through a grant, and we have to apply for it every year, and it's a formulary grant, and it's based off the size of the roadways in Texas, the type of the population-wise, and then the type of enforcement we're doing. So if we're increasing our enforcement, and hopefully the formulary grant is they're going to determine how much we're going to get, but but that it's we don't get it per inspection. We don't get a monetary dividend off that.
Okay, awesome. Well, I know, I sincerely appreciate it. And then they're going to answer me with, no, Holly, we don't get that in writing from DPS. So fantastic. But it's always good to have everything in writing, I always believe, right? So you can go back, so this is fantastic, but then you get from an official source saying, yeah, no, we don't get that. So these are just some of the examples of some of the conversations I've had, some of the questions I have outstanding. Within 2 weeks, I should have a records request fulfilled from Ms. Dunn's office, all of my information from John Mark, the multiple records requests we have right now with Motor Carrier Bureau and TxDOT. So, and trust me, there's more, and I'm going to file official records requests for Seguin and Guadalupe for their budgets, and then go down there to have conversations with them, because the best way to learn about this program, in my experience in research, is you go to the primary source of those who are operating these systems. Just like I'm going to the primary source for those who have the data, right, on what is going on across the state and what's happening in this county. So I hope you walk away. I hope I'm explaining my thought process effectively for you guys. But what I hope, now some of the questions that Kim has had have come from my conversations that I've had with random individuals. So I hope you walk away with 3 things from this. One, know that I'm going to get you the information once I have it, right, within 2 weeks, because that should be the 2-week timeline, to give you a fuller picture, right, of the budget and what these systems are doing, the prior old system and the current system, right, so you can see how we can compare. I hope, too, you walk away with the fact that there is enforcement going on, because I was blown away when I had the conversation, right, and I saw those payments of the $13,000, and just like everyone else, I assumed maybe it's an administration thing. Maybe it's a prior, because remember, last fiscal year was 2 different presidential administrations, right? So it's like, oh, maybe that's one's not enforcement, and now all of a sudden you're gung-ho, right? Which I'm all gung-ho about. I love it. But the truth was, and I was surprised, when he showed me the 7,341 inspections, I was like, oh, wow. So please know that civilians are always there, right? You always have 1 officer on duty, but the 3 civilians are always there. And that made me feel much better about this system. And I have a better understanding of what they do, because honestly, I had no idea what you guys do. I knew you guys were there, and I drive by, but I had no idea. So I love the fact that they're doing what they're doing. But 3, gentlemen, it might seem overwhelming as you enter in this process, because John Mark had a conversation with me. He said, Holly, you're diving in too deep. I just wanted you to answer a couple questions for me. And I said, John Mark, you came to the wrong person for that nonsense. So, because I have now about 7 outstanding conversations I'm having with different people, and I hope to continue those. That's how you find information if something's going to be successful. You ask questions. Just like you guys, I knew nothing about this. And I'm much more well-educated just by starting this on Thursday, right, today than I was on Wednesday before I knew nothing. You have to ask lots of questions. Go to the primary sources. If you cannot do it yourself, if you're like, Holly, we don't have the time, hire somebody to get these questions for you, gentlemen. Because at the end of the day, you're making a very important decision for the county. And I'm telling you, you cannot take this to the voters. You cannot ask me, a voter, to vote on this if you guys don't understand the process. You can't. That's unfair to do to the voter. So you guys have to do your work. And then if you want to vote on it, great. If you're saying we still want the voter to vote on it, then you have to be able to answer every question that I just posed to you. Because at the end of the day, I should not have to do your homework. But right now I am. And that's okay, because I love this community, but that's not my job. I just happen to love this. So I'm nerding out over here, loving it. But at the end of the day, these questions are your job to ask, not the general public.
So when we're talking about potentially, once we get the empirical data from Ms. Parker, deciding whether or not y'all are going to handle the decision yourself, or you're going to put it to a public vote, I ask you to look back on what we just did at the beginning of the meetings today. You had 2,000 and change voters in the county show up to vote on Texas constitutional amendments. Or you really think you're going to get 2,000 people to come and vote, give you what they really would like to see happen within the county? 12%, 12.5% of just what it is compared to the population of Mount Pleasant itself. I'm sorry, I don't know that, I agree with you. We can't go to the public that knows a minutia amount of what you'll be presented with, and in reality, go out and talk with your constituents and find out what they think, and do the right thing yourself rather than put it before the vote, when we're only going to get about 10% turnout at the polls.
Also, you run into a little bit of time frame delay on that as well. The state of Texas has got this money set aside, and they want to vet it in May of 26. So I don't know if they'll go ahead and, if they would move that. That'd be a text dot question, and they're not here today, so.
I would never be in a hurry to do anything other than the right thing.
Right.
I was just going to say, I'm sure some people are wondering why I call Holly. I want to say that is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Okay, and I'm not, that's military. That's everything I've ever done. She's way smarter than I am, and so anyway, it's just, I just is what it is.
She's not getting paid,
and she's not getting paid at all for it, and so. But anyway, I just wanted to just say that she looks at things in a way that I personally can't do it. I don't have that capability, and she's just extremely bright. And I do, when I say don't go overboard, she can't help herself, and she's doing all this for free. And so, that's why I'm trying to not get her, making a trip to Sabine on her own dime and all that stuff. That's just way above and beyond what I'm asking her to do. I'm just asking somebody a whole lot smarter than me that understands numbers in ways that I can't comprehend them to give me her 2 cents on this. Is that right? Well, anyway, I just want to make that clear. People wonder why I'm calling her. I do consult with her when there's money involved and there's math. So, thank you, Holly.
We have spent a lot of time since Thursday reading through everything, talking to people, and through those conversations, we really, really feel like that you guys should maybe go ahead and proceed with the application process. That doesn't lock you into anything, and that if you start the application process, then that gives us the time to get the answers to the questions, to get the FOIAs back, and for y'all to do your due diligence. But you're on a time crunch, and if you look at the paperwork that you were given, it shows on there a timeline. Holly, do you have that? It shows on there a timeline. The application process starts, so while we're waiting for the application process, it gives you time to have the discussions, to do this, to have these meetings, to get out there and talk to your constituents. But we don't need to wait. We need to go ahead and get that started, because once the numbers are in and you have a better idea, at least you'll be that much further along in the process. And how do you take it to the vote of the people if you don't have the interest rates? If you don't have the numbers, how are you going to present it to them? Because we don't know, and we have way more information than apparently even you guys have. So anyway, she has the timeline. So we think it's a good idea.
And just honestly, you guys are the elected officials, right? Judge, Mr. Parker, you're 2 people I directly, vote on. So yes, I have this timeline here, gentlemen. I have everything that you have. I even have, if anyone's interested, the plat, right? Because I asked for everything. So if anyone wants to look at it, please feel free. So remember, the timeline is you submit the SIB application for resolution. TxDOT, so 2 to 4 month process. TxDOT divisions will review applications. You get final TCC approval. Then after that 2 to 4 months, that's when the SIB loan agreement starts to get negotiated. That's where we can back out. Like, that gives me, if you guys need my help, honestly, give me a month and I can put together something for you guys on all the data, if it's going to look good or not. But that will give me time to put something together. And if at those 4 months we're in that negotiation process and we're like, this isn't going to work for us, we can back out then. That's like at the inspection of a house where we still have time to say, not going to work for me, I don't like this agreement. So, but if you guys want that, and if you want my assistance, give me at least a month and I'll put something together for you guys. I just need all the data back from all the departments. But at the end of the day, it's up to you guys, and if you think this is good for the community or not.
So So Holly, what you're saying is, you think that we do need to go ahead with the application process so that we can get a number, so that you can fill those in with your numbers that you're trying to receive?
Well, I think so. If you're looking at to compare it to Guadalupe and Seguin, right? Because that way I can see, okay, what interest rate are they going at? What's their monthly payment, right? So then we can understand. That's where we can get an interest rate idea, right? So I can start comparing to what they're doing. To see if we can afford it. And then also going back further, I want to go back to, I'm going to do another records request for TxDOT, because I want to see year over year if there's been a traffic increase at all, on I-30. I think everyone's noticed that there seems to be more traffic, which I personally hate. That's why I moved here. I mean, I lived in DC. I worked in Portland, Oregon. You wouldn't know what traffic is, and now I'm like, why do I have to stop anywhere? So, but I want to see if there's traffic increase.
They'll also let you know that the plan is from Royce City, which is already starting the process. Sulphur Springs is starting to clear a little bit of land. The plan is to go six lanes all the way to Texarkana. When is that project slated? But it will be at some point.
That's my worst nightmare, if I'm being perfectly honest.
I talked to Mr. King West Saturday night, and they said that Greenville is as far as they're going to go for the 6 lane.
That's not what text does.
Well, I'm just saying
At
that's...
this time, I agree.
Yeah, well, they said there's no
I'm
rule.
not talking about tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm talking about in the future. They're going to widen it.
So, and then for anyone else listening, the one thing I took away too from Officer Crooks, our conversation, is remember that this system is not an end-all be-all, right, to our problems, because I did ask, I was like, okay, what information is in here? That's when he's like, scanning TxDOT, license plate, registration, air pressure, overweight. I said, are there e-logs there? No. Is there driver's license there? No, which is unfortunate, because I was like, we have real ID nowadays. How come their license isn't there? So that way we could flag, from New York and California, no name given. That is really happening nowadays. So I said, okay, so what this system is doing, in layman's terms, you have red light, green light. And so what it's doing is it's a tool to utilize prioritization. So anything that's flagged red, you're going to get a fine out of that one. You just are. If you have a registration issue, if you're having overweight, it's going to be an automatic fine on a lot of those things. The ones that are green, that means all those simple things are being scanned there properly, but they could still have additional issues, which most of the time you're going to walk away with a warning. And that's just my opinion, like an educated assumption, right? So that's what this is. It's a tool for prioritization of trucks where you can get the bad ones off the road, right? So that's how I see it. Do I wish that they had additional information like license and e-logs? Absolutely I do. Could it be a recommendation that we can move forward? Hopefully one day. But, that's on that end.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
I knew that the Guadalupe, they went up on their tax rate 4% on this fiscal year to help pay for the way station and stuff like that. And, you start, I appreciate every bit of the highway patrols, everything they do. I appreciate their job. And, but, it's, when you mention tax rate, people are going to get upset, but.
Understand that. I'd just like to be able to get the number so that we do have the knowledge. If it's going to raise taxes and it's going to cost Titus County money and it's not going to make money for Titus County, I'm not for it one iota. But if it does make us money and it does make us protected more, then I'm for it. But if I don't have all the numbers, then I can't make an informed decision the way I feel about it.
Gentlemen, I agree too on the taxes. I do. I don't want to be taxed anymore. I work very hard for what money I make. At the same time, as a citizen, I'm going to tell you it comes across as hypocritical because this whole body just voted to raise my property taxes, right? And I'm not exactly sure why when you had a surplus. So I'm worried about my money. I am worried about my money, but I want you to be worried about my money all the time, not just subjectively. If I can just be brutally honest as a voter.
Scott, you get that microphone.
I just wonder, like the Seguin facility, I know it's what, 3-4 years being operational? Are they operational all the time, 24/7?
Not 24/7.
But is there a certain time that do we know when they're going to be operating, when they're not going to operate? Only reason I'm saying is the funding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the funding's totally going to be reliant upon the fines for Titus County for making money.
We
Paying
want
back
to get
our
those
loan.
numbers. That's what we're trying to do at this point.
Right,
Scott,
but
is
we're
get all
going to be
that.
totally only relying on that, and we won't have control of running it. So we'll be totally dependent on the state as far as running the facility.
Right. The state's also adding $15 million into it as well.
Well, I understand, but I didn't know also where that breakdown comes from, $15 million. Well, is it 15 million they're adding, or the federal, how much is the federal government putting in?
15 million total on
The state's putting in
the state and
2
the
million
feds.
in. State's putting 2 million, federal 15, us 9. I didn't know how that was figured out. And I just worry about, if whatever happens and it's not operational, our debt's going to still be clicking. I mean, even on Christmas morning. So that's the only big hiccup. I think it's, if you had a business, you wouldn't want to invest in something you couldn't really totally run. So that's just something I'm just saying that we need to really think about.
I think what Mr. Redfern's saying is that you need to establish service level agreements with the state or federal, meaning that they are going to man it so many hours per month in a contract. Because if you build it and it's just sitting there and the state doesn't have an incentive to man it with law enforcement, then no revenue's coming in for us. I think that's absolutely key, to have service level agreements that are ironclad and also have clawbacks. This is kind of my area of federal contracting, that you can make these kind of demands on state and local and federal, because if it's taxpayers, if we're putting money up for this, we need to have a revenue stream that can be verified.
100%.
The other thing too is, I think if you have all this business information, it's like a business plan that you have here. You need to know what the cost is, you need to know what the cash flow is, you need to know what the operational conditions are. I think you also need to know what it's going to be. You're probably going to have another JP office here, and so I think that needs to be an addendum to this whole thing. It's a pretty complicated process. With dedicated people, it can be made pretty clear, but I think it's absolutely imperative, in my opinion, you can't put this to the vote of the people. This is very complicated. I would rather have 5 gentlemen well-educated on it, a circle of people around that care, that have interests in the community, and you put the vote, you folks vote. Because we witnessed, in my opinion, an abomination of 14 amendments in the state of Texas that should not have been brought to the voters. That was just politicians sidestepping their responsibility. We have absolutely no interest in 3 new institutions in the federal government, yet we did put that in. And so these kind of things, we hired you folks, we elected you folks for what you do, and these are the tough decisions that you're elected to make. So, appreciate your time.
With that being said, also, there is talks with the major from down in Austin, that we have had meetings with him. They do have the 3 officers, civilian officers now. They're talking about, they've already got it budgeted for 2 more. They're talking 50 hours a week, depending on legislation. All of that is things that we would be negotiating through on a contract. We're not going to enter into a contract that's going to cost us money. Like I said, if Guadalupe and them are not making money off of it, why would Titus County want one? But if we look at the numbers and see, and they've got 2 shifts, we got 1 shift, we've got to know those things. Those are all details. But without knowing a number that it would cost us as far as the interest rates and things of those nature, it doesn't do us any good to work on a contract with the state or with the feds or anybody until we've got numbers so that we can decide whether the numbers add up or they don't add up. If the numbers don't add up, there's no need in negotiating, there's no need in going any further. If it's going to cost Titus County money, it's not going to be a safety measure, it's not going to pay for it, we don't want it. I think I can speak for everybody on that. I'm not asking for a vote on it, but I'm just saying, I think that we can all agree if it's going to cost us money and we don't have more control, it's not a good deal for Titus County.
Well, we do know that it's going to cost you between $55,000 and $85,000 a month, depending on where the interest rate runs. So to get an interest rate would possibly be a good idea, or giving, or waiting for 2 weeks for Holly to get her information back, and then you would know whether that's going to even fall in that range anywhere at all, because you know that's what you're going to get.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter.
Can't get on the mic.
This is probably premature, but he just started talking about money, and I'm a taxpayer. Everybody here, I've heard 2 voices say this should not go to the people for a vote, and I kind of agree with that, with the exception that if it's going to cost us taxes, more taxes, then we should absolutely have the right to vote on it and not do that. That's my input. I don't have a whole lot of faith in government raising my taxes without my input.
100%. Also, what we're looking at, and basically what we're wanting to get the information for, is for an investment, not an expenditure, not something that we're not going to get a return on our money, not that we're not going to make our money back. Just, this is an investment and not an expenditure. And if the investment doesn't look good, it's not a good business plan, I agree with you. It's a hard no. But if it is a good investment and it makes us money, I think it's a yes. So without those numbers, I can't tell you the answer to that without a hard number. Also there in Seguin, we can compare and get those numbers, and we're still running 2,300 more trucks a day past our weigh station than they are. So you've got to figure that in, and Holly will, because trust me, she is a numbers lady. And I don't even know what the numbers are in Guadalupe. I haven't been to Guadalupe. Me and Jody have been to Seguin. And the commissioners, Jimmy's supposed to go to Seguin at some point.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Are you going down there, Jimmy?
I'm going to try to go.
Jimmy's trying to go.
I've got this surgery coming up, so.
Earlier.
There's a list here of 6 opportunities that you guys have had to find out information about this. I don't know, has any of these been attended? Did you guys go to these?
This is the first workshop we've had.
Okay, there was, February 27th with Rebecca Wells, Katie Martin, informed of the...
Those aren't workshops, though.
No, I don't mean workshops, I mean information meetings.
Those are meetings with TxDOT and stuff.
Okay.
And let's be clear with that. You can't point a finger at any of these.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just asking.
Because it is in Jodee's precinct, and so that's why Jodee would have been there instead of them. So to point them out and say, well, you weren't at this, that's not really fair to them.
What were these for? I mean, were these just for...
Those were meeting with TxDOT. We had a meeting with Daniel and the troopers here. We had a meeting with Miss Wells that passed away, and so that kind of threw some wrenches in everything as well. And now Miss Katie's over that.
So that's what I was just asking you, the engineer.
That's not really fair.
Okay.
That's the
well, I didn't mean that
as
an insult. I'm just asking, like, who went, what was the information provided at these?
Right. And like I said, I've encouraged everybody to go down there. Jimmy's going to have surgery, so he was supposed to go and can't go until after that. And so I don't know if Jeff's going and don't know if Dana's planning on going.
I would like them meetings that not just 2 of them, so everybody should be involved. Not just 2 commissioners, or 2 judge and commissioner. I think everybody as a whole should be involved in all that.
Correct.
Because that way we get more information just like they do.
For sure.
We don't get information when you got two people there.
With workshops as well, and that's what we're having today. So
We should have been doing it a long time ago.
all you gotta do is ask.
Do what?
There you go.
Well, yeah.
I'm good with it. I told y'all I'm good with workshop anytime we want to do it. Not a problem.
You know, I'd like to have one after these meetings, you know, to further discuss stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Want to say something? It has nothing to do with this new waste station. What brings up concern is the fact that it takes so long to figure out where this money goes. It's going to take 2 weeks for her to get any kind of information. To me, it's concerning. To you, Judge, should be concerning. Where's that money? I mean, that's not transparency to me. Transparency is, here it is, right here, that bag.
I appreciate that. It's going to take 2 weeks because she's made her a request for records. I've also sent that over to Judge Dunn and hadn't got that back as yet as well, but she's got some records. They've got 10
Those are going
days
to
to get any
TxDOT.
records.
Yeah, but I mean, just this.
Right, for sure.
You're not talking, saying this money goes here, no, this money goes here, no, nobody knows where the money goes. That's concerning.
Very concerned.
So, and that's why it seems like, okay, and just talking to people, right, it's also political season, okay, so, there seems to be a level of almost, I want to be honest, distrust between departments. Like, this is my department, my department, right? And what happens is when you're going and saying, okay, what are we seeing for these numbers? And the example of, okay, this is station, but not really realizing right away, so that's how I'm not working, okay, not realizing that, okay, there's other fines out there, right? But it's on a different type of system, right? So I need to find out what that is. What it's creating, in my opinion, is more inherent distrust, like something's being withheld, right? And so that's why part of this, I'm loving this process because it's teaching us, one, our systems aren't speaking to each other because they're not, right? Our departments, we're going to have like 3 or 4 different departments working together in this process. So it's saying, okay, how do we work together to build this properly? And then in this creation, if we're moving forward, how to create it, right, where it is speaking together and we're working together, because that's not happening right now. And so that's why I want to meet with our auditor. I'm going to hopefully, Nanette, I'd love to meet with you, right, so I can see what you're seeing in the system.
I just kind of want to add that I do watch the numbers. I watch the fluctuation in the numbers. I went directly to the treasurer when in July we had an exorbitant amount of overweight fees wrote. I mean, I noticed it. I thought there was a miscalculation in the report. We went from about 500 or 600 to 6,000. So I do watch when fees trend. I watch the fines go up in the last year. We have a new administration. Our DPS is back on the roads. They're writing tickets. I understand that if I don't see an increase in fines and fees on the reports that are turned into us monthly, that should be a question because they're back writing.
Yeah.
When I'm getting, instead of 15,000, I'm getting 17,000, doesn't flag that well because I think it should be going up.
Mm-hmm.
So we do watch the reporting that the departments turn into us. We do watch the trending because if all of a sudden we're reporting a much higher fee, there could have been a miscalculation of the way it was receipted in. There could have been put in the wrong fee line. I have to move things sometimes because I get receipted into the wrong fee lines and things of that nature. So we do a very stringent overview of the reporting that comes in to the auditor's department and the treasurer's department. We work as a team. She receipts it in, and then I do another follow-up to make sure it all falls in the right line, to make sure that the state is getting their fines and stuff. So we do look at this, and there are some trending changes, but pretty much there hasn't been a big movement. I did call I called another county that had a similar weigh station like the one that we have currently with a canopy and a building, very similar off of I-45 instead of I-30. They're running like on an average less than $140,000 annually in that weigh station. station, and I'm like, well, why is our weigh station not bringing in that? I think it's because it gets buried in our fees. We're not capturing that money collectively in one bucket. So I'm not saying that we're not bringing it. I'm just saying that we're not. But I did know when they're trending that in the last 5 to 6 years, they had 20,000 one year because they had no one staffing the station. I talked to that auditor. So we did reach out to some like sources. I did make a recommendation at the very beginning when I was asked about this project some months ago. I did supply information to the judge's office about possibly getting a financial advisor, looking at the finance part of it. I just was not sure if their office was at that point yet, because I am a provider of information and an overseeing of policy. I don't have a vote, they would say, but I mean, so we did look at things, and I will be so happy to share with you, and I'm very excited about you looking at this project.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you. And I'm also looking to look at the system itself, because I do have a friend who is vice president at Salesforce, and so I went to her saying, do you know anything about the system? And she's like, I've never heard of it. She's like, that doesn't mean it's bad, right? But if there is something that's better that speaks to, like, where departments can speak to each other better, so, yeah, the software system, right. Yeah, so that way it doesn't, when you're looking at the capture of the fees, right, you have to go to many different variations to be able to find everything.
For these fees, they're all in our contract.
Yeah.
It's all denoted on how they're supposed to be set up. So there may be, as Officer Crooks had said, you know, when he was talking, they're in all these different areas. So you may be getting a $750 fee, but they're in different lines. It depends on the structure of the fee. When the ticket comes in, it's set up in the system. It puts it in there. And then normally the fine piece is a lot of these are hard coded numbers, except for when you get to your fine. From my understanding, the fine is where you have to send the state so much, you have to send this one so much, but in the fine area, that can be set by the judge, so that those fines sometimes are not all solid. That's my understanding from when I was researching stuff myself.
Okay, fantastic. I look forward to speaking with you. But it'd be nice to be able to get eventually a whole number on how much we're bringing in between the fines, John Mark's office, because it is all from that weigh station, right, in theory. So we want to see holistically. I don't think we've had a holistic number of what we actually brought in last year via the weigh station. And so that's why having to go to different departments to see how they're interacting with this weigh station, right, the monies that are coming from them, and how if we do move forward with this project, how we can improve this process so it better speaks to each other.
All I can do is, as you said, go into the system and look into the system and pull the codes that are related, that are subcodes under other codes. It's really hard to find. I did find some old tire violations in there. I didn't find anything on logbook, but the reason is it's probably denoted under a different fee structure. It probably is in there differently. So it's very, very good to have all of that so that we can extrapolate that data out the way the data needs to be out. But when I was requested from my office, I tried to find, I got on with the software company to pull out as much individual fee structure as I could to substantiate the different types of tickets that were written. Unfortunately for me, when I submitted my information, I submitted it as a revenue total, not a ticket written, except for the tires. I think I sent you those individually because I was able to get those out like that. So I just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
I did question about it not being transparent because it's taking so long. That is a massive amount of data that the clerk or the court system is going to have to. That is a massive amount of data that the clerk or the court system is going to have to compile. And if they're limited with their staff, with it being the end of the year, we just finished and they're going into a new budget year, if they're being audited, if they're doing anything in their office, they have to set that time aside or have a specific employee set aside to do that. If it's the auditor's office or if it's the JP's office, if it's the clerk's office, if it's the county attorney's office, if it's the State Department's office, 10 days is not really enough sometimes when you're asking for the amount of data she's asking for all those years.
Anyone else?
Any more questions from anybody? I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Parker. All those in favor?
Aye.